It's the ultimate catch-22. Do you want to live in a country where a government comes to you to be vaccinated by the state? No is the answer. Simultaneously, will these non-vaccinated people hold up the reopening of society and increase cases? And the answer is yes. There is the kind of conundrum that we're putting out here. Andrew Lloyd Webber wades into the COVID debate, warning ministers not to be selfish vaccine refusers, and derail plans for the final stages of easing the lockdown. The composer also said that those who wouldn't have the jab are as bad as drink drivers.
You could just say, I would like to go out and have a drink tonight and drive home, and accidentally I kill somebody. Nobody's going to go out and deliberately infect anybody with COVID, but it's completely wrong if we know the science. I mean, I was on the Oxford vaccine trial last year. The vaccines are very effective.
Of course, it comes as Boris Johnson has said today. We will know more in a few days about the new Indian variant. Yesterday, Health Secretary Matt Hancock confirmed there are now 86 local authorities with 5 or more confirmed cases of the COVID variant.
483 of these cases have been seen in Bolton and Blackburn with Darwin, where it's now the dominant strain. Cases there have doubled in the last week and are rising in all age groups. In Blackburn, hospitalisations are stable, with 8 people currently in hospital with COVID. And in Bolton, 19 people are now in hospital with coronavirus, the majority of whom are eligible for a vaccine but haven't yet had a vaccine.
Interesting. The Health Secretary also confirmed the UK has obtained enough Pfizer COVID vaccines to immunise all children aged 12. I don't know why you'd want to be doing that. Why are some not taking the jab then? Are they selfish? And how does this impact the spread of the virus? 0344 499 1000. Let's speak to Ria Lina, the virologist, who joins us now. Ria, good afternoon to you. I mean, there's quite a lot in these recent developments. I mean, let's just deal with the first one. Andrew Lloyd Webber, who'd have thought he'd pitch up in this discussion?
He's interesting, isn't he? He pops up every now and again. I remember he flew back from New York for a specific vote in the House of Lords a few years ago as well, which, so every so often he has a political opinion.
Yeah.
And, well, he's in the House of Lords, so technically he's allowed, right?
I guess.
But it's an interesting comparison that he made between not getting the vaccine and drunk driving. I think it's quite an apt one because it does exemplify quite well what happens if we have a population where most people are vaccinated, i.e. drinking not under the influence, and then we have a few people that are increasing the danger of those around them by the decisions that they're making for themselves. And I think that's the key message that he's trying to get across. And I think it's a very easy comparison to understand, is that when you don't have the vaccine through choice, and yeah, we're in a country where you can make that choice, and I'm not arguing for or against making that choice. I'm just here to tell you what the science says. And the science says that as we have an increasing population that is vaccinated, those that then become the weak point or the entry points for the virus to enter our communities are those that are unvaccinated, because they will be a lot easier for the virus to infect, and then they will be a lot easier to then spread from those people to those that are vulnerable or those that can't be vaccinated.
But there's a massive ethical component to this, as there is in all of these discussions, I suppose, and that is that if you took that to its ultimate kind of conclusion, you would have the state compulsorily vaccinate every individual.
Well, not every individual, because as with
less.
all vaccines, there are people that can't have it. The whole science behind a large vaccination program, like we already accept with most are given to children. Actually, most vaccines, as you know, children start with their BCG up to 8 weeks if they're in an area that is known for tuberculosis, and then we continue that over the next couple of years. And the whole reason for that, to vaccinate a population en masse against a particular disease, is to protect those that can't be vaccinated, to provide as few gaps or chinks in the armor for those diseases to come in and infect a population. Because what we're seeing, and this is one of the things that I think we can understand better in this pandemic than we ever have before, is that what happens is if you have constant low levels of infection where a virus can continue to evolve, which is what we saw in Kent earlier in this pandemic, South Africa, Brazil, and now India, what happens is that these new variants come out, and And the more that you allow a virus to evolve, the more it can evolve the potential to cause even more damage.
But we do have at the moment, of course, 37 million vaccinated, 20 million on the double dose as well. All that vulnerable age group, all vaccinated. I mean, are we in danger here of legislating against what is, a mild disease, after all, when it comes down to how this might affect individuals? We've got a sort of form of herd immunity now.
We do, and it's increasing every day as more and more people are being vaccinated. We are creating a herd immunity, and this is why the government is moving forward with this reopening, which is why yesterday and today we've been allowed to suddenly go inside and hug and meet in larger groups. And this is why they think that we still will be able to, on June 21st, get back to some semblance of normality because of the vaccinated population. If this Indian variant hit us and we didn't have this vaccine rollout even as advanced as it is now, then we wouldn't be in this position of reopening. And I think people need to appreciate that as well, is that it is because of those that have chosen to be vaccinated that we now can all together enjoy these freedoms that we're enjoying. So even if you choose not to be vaccinated yourself, I think you do need to be aware of the fact that you're allowed to be out and about now because we have 37 million that did choose to be vaccinated.
But predominantly, would it be reasonable, Ria, to say, look, that the most vulnerable group, the 9 out of 10 people who die of COVID are that very sort of over 80s with underlying health conditions. All of that group of people, doesn't mean other people don't get it, but all of that group of people have now been vaccinated for a long time, relatively speaking. Once that is done, I mean, we don't apply medicine to the population for every illness that goes around. We don't do it in the flu season.
Yes, but COVID isn't fixed. And one of the things that we did see as we started to vaccinate our elderly and most vulnerable, it's not the only vulnerable, they're the most vulnerable, is that we saw that the age of people being hospitalized lowered. Why did the age of people being hospitalized lower? Because those were the ones that were now the most vulnerable. As we slowly start to vaccinate down the ages, what you will find is that the virus will now start killing people in their 40s or their 30s because that's who it has access to. So it isn't about going, it only kills the elderly. That is a misconception.
Surely it already had. Did it not already have access to those people?
It did, but this is we've seen, and let's be clear, there are people up and down this country who have lost people of all ages. I know people in Liverpool, if you recall, when Liverpool was particularly suffering, who were losing friends in their 20s. This is, it's killing the most people in the elderly ages, but this does affect everyone, and you don't know who it will affect at any age. And what we don't want to do is suddenly have a small group of people that are unvaccinated and they become the most vulnerable. And I think that's the thing to understand, is that as we have a population of vaccinated people, the most vulnerable become not those that are elderly or not those that have underlying conditions, but those that are unvaccinated.
Okay, does that mean
put themselves at greater risk?
Does that mean you would?
To do that.
Sorry to talk over you. Would you then support vaccinating 12-year-olds? Because this seems like an act of lunacy to me. Why would we be doing this?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm going to say that I haven't read enough of the science to be able to form an opinion on that. But what I would say, without having read the specific science about these particular vaccines in children, and there are trials going on, and when that data comes out, I'll be happy to read it and form more of an opinion for you. But generally speaking, the children have the strongest and the most robust immune systems, and as we said earlier, we tend to give most of the vaccine programs are designed for children. So to be more worried about children, I would. There was
no big spread when they went back to school, was there? When they went back to the classroom, there was no big increase in cases as I see it. So that would suggest that there isn't an inherent problem with young people.
Well, that would also potentially suggest that the schools did a very good job of following the rules: social distancing, mask wearing, testing with with lateral flow tests twice a week. So it's difficult just between yourself and myself to decide exactly what.
No, I get that. I get that, and there's a lot of anecdotal stuff here. I understand that. Listen, Ria, thank you, Ria Lina. Always good to speak. Virologist with us here on Talk Radio. I'm unsure whether the virus actually gives a hoot about whether you're 2 meters or 1 meter away, and the school kids going back, and they went back, after the half-term break, wasn't it? That's when they returned to the classroom, and no increase. And I don't believe that's all just because, Mrs. Smithers in C class decided to employ masks or social distancing or make sure the kids queue in a different way from the way they used to. It would strike me that all the evidence we were told throughout that it doesn't really affect kids is still alive and well. So why would you be vaccinating them?